Hello guys, welcome back to LR Anime Moments. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel, thank you. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of The Great Ruler based on novel. So let's start. Let's go. Mu Chen smiled at Luo Li and immediately followed. Behind him, Yi Qingling, Sun Er, Mo Ling and the others also quickly followed. They also happened to be in the same area as Mu Chen. Thus, they would be able to take care of each other from now on. Thousands of people followed Mu Ling and charged away from the stone platform. As they descended down, numerous cultivation halls appeared in their eyes. Moreover, they could see countless individuals flying through the skies. Under Mu Ling's guidance, Mu Chen and the others flew towards the west side for dozens of minutes before slowing down. Then, the former pointed down and smiled, "This is the place where you'll be living." Mu Chen and the others looked down and noticed the lush scenery along with the sparkling clear lake. In this area, there were simple houses situated in groups, the spiritual aura here. Surprise filled Mu Chen's eyes. He discovered that the spiritual aura of the world was exceptionally dense in this region. Moreover, the density would increase as they entered the depths of this region. There's actually a huge spirit convergence array hidden in this place. Mu Chen's eyes swept across this area. Right now, his eyes weren't the same as before. With just a glance, he was able to detect the hidden special fluctuations within the air. These were fluctuations that were unique to a spiritual array. This residential area for freshmen actually has a spirit convergence array. Moreover, the rank of it had definitely surpassed the only spirit convergence array that the Northern Spiritual Academy possessed. Little guy, you have keen eyes? Mu Ling was amazed as she stared at Mu Chen. However, she smiled and faced the crowd as she said, "The place that you will be living in is enveloped by a rank 4 spirit convergence array." When these words were spoken, commotions instantly broke out from the crowd. A spirit convergence array was a symbol of power for any forces. Perhaps many of them had seen a rank 4 spirit convergence array. It was still the first time that they've seen one arranged at a residential location. Moreover, the residential area for freshmen is also divided into A, B, C class. You are only assigned to C class right now. It is considered to be at the border of the rank 4 spirit convergence array. Although the spiritual aura here is quite decent, it cannot compare with the B class and A class areas. Mu Ling pointed to the depths of this region. It was evident that the spiritual aura at that location was much more concentrated. Then, she said, that location is the center of the spirit convergence array. The density of the spiritual aura naturally surpassed the exterior of it. Can we live at that place as well? A few freshmen drooled as they asked. It was evident that it was much more beneficial for their cultivation if they were to live inside that area, of course. Mu Ling smiled charmingly as she replied, "However, we would require a fee for you were to live there. An A-class room requires a fee of 2,000 spiritual value points per month. As for a B-class room, it requires 1,000 spiritual values points." All the new students were completely stunned when they heard this. So it was like that? They had to pay rent. Little guys, spiritual value points are quite important within the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy. This can be a mean to motivate you to cultivate. In the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy, there are a total of 100 plus rank 4 spirit convergence arrays, 60 plus rank 5 spirit convergence arrays, 20 rank 6 spirit convergence arrays, 10 rank 7 spirit convergence arrays and 1 rank 8 spirit convergence array. What do you mean? At this moment, everybody felt a sense of unease. Aside from the rank 4 spirit convergence array, the remaining spirit convergence array requires a fee to enter. For the rank 7 spirit convergence array, it requires a fee of 5,000 spiritual value points per day. Bang! Almost all of the students fell down at this moment. They finally understood what sort of existence spiritual values points are within the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy. It would be difficult for them to progress forward without any spiritual value points here. Mu Chen also laughed bitterly when he heard this. Right now, he possessed 6,100 spiritual value points. In other words, wouldn't he only qualify to cultivate for one day in the rank 7 spirit convergence array? However, it's still quite interesting. Everyone shouldn't be this sad. There are actually many ways to earn spiritual value points within the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy. Mu Ling smiled charmingly, but a hint of sadistic satisfaction could be seen when she looked at their miserable appearances. The simplest method of obtaining spiritual value points is to infuse your strongest spiritual energy within your spiritual value card every month. If you've improved during that month, you will automatically be rewarded for the difference. Of course, you can also do it whenever you make a breakthrough. If you want to obtain spiritual value points quicker, you can enter the Lightning Territory. That is a popular location within the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy. Mu Ling pointed towards the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy's skies in the distance. All of them immediately turned their gaze over and they noticed that the sky at that location was quite dark. They could vaguely see the distorting skies and flashing lightning. The lightning territory is a cultivation ground that the Northern Heavens Spiritual Academy had opened up. At that location, endless amounts of divine lightning descend. This divine lightning possesses the effect of strengthening spiritual energy. At the same time, it can also strengthen the body. Anyone who reaches spirit stage strength can enter that place. Aside from cultivation, you could condense the divine lightning into a divine lightning bead. This is quite popular within the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy. It is said that it is worth 200 spiritual value points per bead in the Spiritual Values Hall. 200 spiritual values per bead? The corner of the crowd's eyes twitched. It was actually that expensive? It seems that it was a decent method to earn spiritual values. However, Mu Ling placed her hands on her lips and smiled bewitchingly at them. You will also have to pay a price to enter the lightning territory. However, it isn't that much. You can enter it after paying 500 spiritual value points. Okay. Next up, everybody can begin to decide where they want to live. If anyone wants to be transferred over to the B-class or A-class area, please let me know. Mu Ling chuckled as she stared at the bitter expressions on the freshmen. At this moment, all of the new students exchanged gazes with each and smiled wryly. With the spiritual value points that they possessed, they could only temporarily live within the C-class area. Only after they've gradually understood how to obtain spiritual value can they select a higher level of treatment. Mu Chen looked at the A-class area and was slightly moved by it. Currently, he had over 6,000 spiritual value and was more than enough for him to select a place with dense spiritual aura. This way, it would be beneficial for his cultivation as well. Thus, it was worth the price that he would pay. Mu Chen thought for a moment before suddenly leaning over to Luo Li and saying, "Why don't we live together?" Once she heard this, Luo Li froze. Then, she immediately blushed and glared at him with a bashful expression. It seems that this guy is going overboard now that we've reunited with each other. However, Mu Chen ignored her and looked towards Mu Ling. He said, "Instructor Mu Ling, how many people can share a room together?" 2 people. Mu Ling chuckled as she moved her gaze alternatively at Mu Chen and Luo Li. In her eyes, a special meaning could be seen then. "I want an A-class room." Mu Chen smiled. At this moment, everybody's expression turned grim and gnashed their teeth. The Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy was truly despicable. After Mu Chen had said this, Zhu Ling and the others also selected an A-class room. With the amount of spiritual values that they had, it was enough for them to pay this fee. As for Yi Qingling, she brought Sun Er with her and selected a B-class room. Chaos appeared within the skies for a while and many freshmen had decided on where they would be living. Afterwards, Mu Ling brought Mu Chen and the others as they headed towards the A-class area. Once Mu Chen and the others entered the A-class room, they could feel the dense spiritual aura within the world. Their consciousness trembled for a moment as they could feel that this residential area would definitely bring numerous benefits to their cultivation. Below here are the A-class rooms. You can pick among them yourselves. Once you've entered the room, it will automatically deduct the amount of spiritual values from your spiritual value card. Mu Ling pointed downwards as she smiled. After you've selected your room, you should rest for the day. Also, if you use the spiritual value card in your hands, you can contact the Spiritual Value Hall. In the Spiritual Value Hall, you can exchange for a variety of items. Moreover, you can use the spiritual value card to check for them. Of course, if you've taken a liking to anything, you would still have to head over to the Spiritual Value Hall in order to exchange for it. Mu Chen and the others nodded as they stared downwards. His gaze glanced around before finally stopping at a tiny house near the clear lake. Then, he smiled, "I'll select this one." As his voice faded away, he smiled and turned to look at Luo Li. Then, without waiting for the girl to resist, he pulled her slender hand and descended down towards that house. At this moment, Zhu Ling and the others that were nearby had an extraordinary expression as they witnessed this scene. Wasn't this too stimulating? However, Mu Chen ignored their reactions and landed in front of the house with Luo Li. The girl immediately escaped from his grasp, blushing as her eyes were filled with embarrassment. "Don't try to push your luck," Luo Li warned. She pushed open the door and entered. The tiny house had 2 floors and looked quite tidy. Luo Li glanced around and was quite satisfied with it. Moreover, the 2-floor design had made her slightly relieved. "From now on, I'll live upstairs while you've lived downstairs," Luo Li replied. This time, Mu Chen nodded sincerely and did not dare to provoke the girl, who was already embarrassed due to the cohabitation. Although the 2 of them knew each other's feelings, the girl should still maintain a bit of modesty between them. Luo Li stepped upstairs to inspect her room. While she did so, Mu Chen wandered around and returned to his own room. At that location, the beds were already prepared. It was evident that the treatment provided for an A-class room was quite outstanding. Mu Chen lay down on the soft bed and let out a deep sigh. Various emotions appeared within his heart. From now on, he was considered to be an official student of the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy. He would be spending a few years here for cultivation, Dad. I will properly train myself in the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy. The next time I return, I will definitely bring Mom back with me. Mu Chen grasped his hands tightly. After he left the Northern Spiritual Realm, there was nobody beside his dad. Thus, he must be quite lonely. Mu Chen gripped onto the spiritual value card and emitted out a trace of spiritual energy. At this moment, the spiritual value card lit up and a screen of light was formed in front of the card. On the screen of light, various diagrams and data appeared. Python's Fury. A spear created by using the only horn that belongs to a golden horn spirit python. Once it was used in battle against humans and spiritual energy was emitted out, the spear tip will be like an anger python. It possessed exceptional power and is a middle-rank spiritual artifact. Price, 8,000 spiritual value points. 9 Flare Art. Gong FA Spiritual Art. Spiritual tier middle rank. Price, 9,000 spiritual value points. Phantom Magic Steps. Movement Spiritual Art. Spiritual tier middle rank. Price, 7,800 spiritual value points. Meteor Fall Spiritual Array. Rank 3 Diagram Array. Forms meteorites with spiritual energy whose power is something that even a heavenly fusion stage would not dare to fight head-on. Price, 13,000 spiritual value points. Divine Lighting Bead. Possesses the aura of divine lightning. It has the ability of strength the spiritual aura within one's body as well as their body. Price, 200 spiritual value per bead. Various images flashed through Mu Chen's eyes. As the list progressed, his eyes became more and more surprised. The majority of the items sold in the spiritual value points were quite outstanding. Even high-rank diagram arrays could be seen occasionally. However, the price was also quite expensive. With Mu Chen's wealth, he could not purchase any of them. After flipping through the images, Mu Chen's eyes finally turned serious. Myriad Lightning Sword. Deity tier low rank. Attack Spiritual Art. Created by a sovereign powerhouse. Price, 3 million spiritual value points. Only possessed by the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy. Mu Chen immediately inhaled deeply once he saw this. His eye could not help but jump when he noticed it. Deity tier spiritual art? This spiritual value hall actually sells deity tier spiritual arts. Mu Chen's heart pounded rapidly before he gradually recovered from the shock. In the spiritual value hall, there were a few items that were sold by students. But at the same time, there was also something that was only possessed by the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy. For example, this deity tier spiritual art was the property of the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy and was not a private belonging of the students. This treasure was something that would make even Mu Chen completely moved. However, the price following it also made his mouth twitch for a moment. With a price of 3 million spiritual value points, just how many people could purchase it within the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy? Mu Chen shook his head as he smiled bitterly. It was evident that this was something that the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy had deliberately displayed in order to motivate their students. It was something that one could see, but could not purchase. At this moment, Mu Chen restrained himself of any thoughts about it and began looking through the images again. As he continued downwards, the amount of outrageous items would increase. However, the price that followed it also made Mu Chen turn completely pale. Piercing 9 Dragon Array. Rank 6 Diagram Array. Price, 3,500,000 spiritual value points. Ancient Golden Bird Soul Essence. Heaven Rank Middle Class Spiritual Beast. Ranked 34th on the Myriad Beast Records Earth ranking. Price, 4 million spiritual value points. 9 Cauldrons Divine Armor. Peerless Spiritual Artifact. Can defend against an all-out attack from a heavenly transformation stage. Price, 3,300,000 spiritual value points. These various treasures flashed across Mu Chen's eyes. Every single one of these items made it difficult for Mu Chen keep his calm. At the same time, the prices also made him jump. As expected from the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy. Only they would possess such ability and bring out such treasures. Any one of these items would definitely lead to a chaotic scramble for them within the Northern Heavens continent. Yet it had become the best method to motivate students to earn spiritual value points. Mu Chen smiled bitterly before he glanced over again and was about to stop looking to avoid being excessively stimulated by the pictures. However, just when he was about to close the screen of light, his eyes retracted suddenly. Northern Sea Dragon's Blood Essence. An item from the Protector Divine Beast of the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy. Possessed the ability to strengthen the body as well as cleansing the bones. If a human were to absorb it, it would completely change their body. They would possess a powerful body that is comparable to a spiritual beast. Price, 7 million spiritual value points. Northern Sea Dragon's Blood Essence, Mu Chen murmured. Isn't that the item that the Nine Netherbird wanted? As long as he obtained it, the Nine Netherbird would be able to break through its shackles and shed its spiritual form and become a divine beast. It would awaken its ancient bloodline and become an super existence that is in no way inferior to the Northern Sea Dragon. In Mu Chen's aura sea, powerful spiritual energy stormed out. The Nine Netherbird, who was originally laid back, instantly stood up. The flaming black fire within its eyes was completely filled with excitement and delight. Mu Chen. Mu Chen. We found it. We must get it. We must get it. The Nine Netherbirds' thoughts were conveyed over. It was the first time that Mu Chen had seen the Nine Netherbird being this excited and delighted. Mu Chen smiled helplessly. He would like to help it, but it should at least look at the price of this item. See, it was a total of 7 million spiritual value points. Just who, in the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy, could purchase this item? Rampaging spiritual energy rumbled within Mu Chen's aura sea as excitement filled the Nine Netherbirds' eyes. Even Mu Chen could clearly feel the emotions that it had currently. Don't be impatient. Mu Chen smiled wryly and said, since I promised that I would help you obtain the Northern Sea Dragon's blood essence, I will definitely do it. But let's be realistic as well, okay? After all, you're not going to tell me to go and steal it, right? Hearing Mu Chen's voice, the Nine Netherbirds' eyes calmed down for a bit. The raging black flames on its body slowly weakened as it flapped its wings and said, you must help me obtain it. Right now, I only require that to awaken my bloodline, break through the shackles of a spiritual beast, and complete my evolution. Mu Chen nodded his head and smiled, relax. Since we've formed a bloodline bond, I will definitely help you out to the best of my abilities. As he spoke, he stared once again at the price of the Northern Sea Dragon's blood essence and shook his head as he smiled bitterly. Just how long would it take before he gathers a total of 7 million spiritual value points? But after he thought about it, he understood the reason behind it. After all, just how valuable is the Northern Sea Dragon's blood essence? If it could be obtained easily, then it would be too good to be true. To obtain something like this, they could only take it step by step. Knock knock. At this moment, gentle knocks rang out near the door side. Mu Chen lifted his head and noticed a girl in a black dress leaning gently on the door. The girl's figure was extremely slim and soft, and her waist had curves that would move any man. Her long hair flowed down like a silver river. At the same time, sunlight was shining through the windows and made the girl's exquisite appearance even more beautiful. Mu Chen stared at the enchanting girl in front of him and was completely lost in his thoughts. What are you looking at? Luo Li walked in front of him and asked with a smile, I am quite fortunate that I suddenly became soft-hearted when I first met you in the spiritual road. Mu Chen smiled. His black eyes stared at the exquisite face in front of him and said, otherwise, just how lonely would I be in the future? From what you've said, it seems that you didn't really want to save me in the beginning. A hint of smile and gentleness also appeared in Luo Li's eyes. Mu Chen was completely speechless. After all, it wouldn't have been very beneficial for a person to be soft-hearted within a ruthless place like the spiritual road. You chased me for more than half a month right after that. You should have calmed down already, right? Luo Li smiled faintly. A gentle smile rippled within her calm eyes. Mu Chen was fortunate, but wasn't she also fortunate? Because of his appearance, her gloomy world had seemed to come alive. Even if she had numerous burdens on her shoulders, she still possessed a bit of expectation on meeting him once again. Okay. Let's stop with the chit-chat and talk about business. Luo Li retracted her smile and looked seriously at Mu Chen. She said, you are planning to fight against Yang Hong in the freshman competition a month later, right? Yes. Mu Chen nodded his head. He did not like Yang Hong at all. That guy was an accomplice of Ji Xian on the spiritual road. All the events that were caused by Ji Xian, this guy had also participated in them. Now that they've met in the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy, there was no way that he would let him go so easily. The heaven-ranked middle-class spiritual beast, Ancient Tiger Dragon, that's ranked 50th on Myriad Beast Records Earth ranking? Mu Chen was quite surprised, and his expression turned serious. As expected, Yang Hong wasn't an ordinary individual. With such combat abilities, even Mu Chen felt a bit of pressure. With Mu Chen's current strength, he would be able to fight against an Heavenly Fusion Stage initial phase opponent if he used the shared power of the Nine Netherbird. However, it would barely be enough against a Heavenly Fusion Stage middle phase opponent. If he completely relies on the 9 Netherbirds' power, it would be a simple task for him to defeat a Heavenly Fusion Stage middle phase opponent. However, that was his last resort. Mu Chen did not want to borrow too much external power. Even if he formed a bloodline bond with the 9 Netherbird, it wasn't beneficial for his cultivation if he borrowed too much external strength. Although you have many techniques, your foundation is still weak. After all, you are still only at the spirit stage middle phase. The gap between you and Yang Hong is exceptionally great. Therefore, you will have to make a lot of preparations for the battle next month. At the very least, you will have to increase your strength to the spirit stage late phase within the month, Luo Li said with a solemn expression. Mu Chen nodded his head. Although his combat abilities were equivalent to a Heavenly Fusion Stage initial phase, he was only still at the Spirit Stage middle phase. This was his major weakness. But at the same time, it wasn't easy for him to advance to the Spirit Stage late phase within a month. If you are able to obtain a Spirit Pill, you should be able to advance to the Spirit Stage late phase within a month. As for the violent medical energy, it is simple to deal with it. Instructor Mu Ling had mentioned it earlier, the lightning territory has endless amounts of divine lightning. The divine lightning possesses the effect of strengthening spiritual energy. If you were to take the spirit pill within that place, you should be able to rely on the power of the divine lightning to completely absorb the energy within the pill. Luo Li smiled. Judging from her detailed explanation, it was evident that she had considered this issue a while ago. Mu Chen nodded his head. To a person like him who was at the spirit stage, the effect of this spirit pill was quite decent. It was quite rare to obtain such a precious pill within the northern spiritual realm. However, there is only one issue. Luo Li pointed at the end of the light screen and said, the spirit pill costs 20,000 spiritual value points. Right now, I only have 11,000 spiritual value points, while you only have roughly 4,000 spiritual value points. Even if we add it up, it wouldn't be enough. Luo Li frowned. It was evident that she didn't know what to do either. Since they've only just entered the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy, they naturally did not possess many methods of earning spiritual value points. Therefore, it was indeed an enormous problem to them. Spiritual value points. Mu Chen frowned for a moment before he smiled. It's not that there isn't a solution to this issue. Luo Li stared in surprise at Mu Chen. She did not know what methods he could use to solve this issue. Mu Chen smiled and grabbed onto Luo Li's slender hand. Follow me. Seeing that this guy started becoming all touchy again, Luo Li immediately blushed. She struggled gently for a moment before discovering that Mu Chen was holding her hand so tightly that she could only give up on resisting. After all, there was no one else aside from them here. Mu Chen pulled Luo Li to the highest part of the house. There, they were able to see the clear blue skies. If they were to look further away, they would be able to see a corner of the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy. At this moment, Mu Chen stared at the most eye-catching bird-shaped mountain within the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy. Accurately speaking, he was looking at the massive stone tablet that displayed the spirit ranking on top of the bird-shaped mountain's left wing. Didn't Instructor Mu Ling say it earlier? As long as we are able to enter the top ranks of the spirit stage, we would be able to obtain spiritual value points as reward. Mu Chen stared at the stone tablet that was a symbol of glory within the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy. Numerous Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy students would probably always be checking to see if there were any changes on it. Are you planning to enter the spirit ranking? Luo Li said in surprise. Mu Chen stared at the spiritual value card and his eyes turned serious. He slowly tightened his hands and a powerful spiritual energy surged out from his body. The surrounding air also began to fluctuate. Within his aura sea, the spiritual energy light wheel flashed. The spirit that was sitting cross-legged on top of the light wheel also emitted dazzling light as it pushed the spiritual energy in his body to the limits. Boom! Dark black spiritual energy rushed out from Mu Chen's fist and caused a tremendous pounding sound. It roared as it formed a pillar of light and bombarded the flashing spiritual value card. The change in the spirit ranking immediately attracted many Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy students' attention. Various voices rang out, however, they did not know which senior it was that was breaking through to the Heavenly Fusion stage. And under numerous gazes, the golden light continued to climb upwards. Rank 9, Rank 7, Rank 5. When the golden light reached Rank 4, people finally began to feel surprised about it. Although the spirit ranking was only a basic ranking to the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy, nobody would believe that the ones that were able to hold that position for a long time would be quite weak. Especially the ones ranked in the top 3 of the spirit ranking. These 3 individuals were famous even among the Heavenly Fusion stage powerhouses within the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy. For more than half a year, their rankings within the spirit ranking was untouchable. And now, many individuals' gazes concentrated on the golden light. When the golden light finally reached rank 4, it finally slowed down and hovered for a moment. Then, the golden light jumped up suddenly and occupied the rank 3 position. Once that golden light occupied the rank 3 position, the name that was originally ranked 3rd flashed and slowly faded away. Under normal circumstances, the name wouldn't fade away if they were surpassed in the ranking. It would only drop 1 rank. However, the person that was originally rank 3 had already advanced into the heavenly fusion stage. It was considered that he had lost the qualifications to compete again in the spirit ranking. Thus, once it was surpassed, it had directly vanished from the rankings. However, this change would only occur for the rank 3 position. The other ranks that had been surpassed would still have to drop a position. The one that was removed is Mo Lun, right? Oh ho ho, that guy is truly unlucky. If he was still on the spirit ranking, he would be able to obtain 1,000 spiritual value points every day. In the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy, a few people gloated as they laughed at Mo Lun's unfortunateness. Then, they stared at the golden light that occupied rank 3. At that location, the lights began to dissipate a little before finally becoming a name formed by golden lights. Spirit ranking rank 3, Mu Chen. Cultivated at Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy for a day. The silence within the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy only lasted for a split second before a bustling commotion rang out. How many years had it been since such a thing had happened? Just who is this Mu Chen? It seems that the freshmen this year are quite capable. Could it be that he just so happened to break through to the heavenly fusion stage today? And so he also used that loophole? This is quite interesting. Mo Lun isn't a weakling. Since this freshman called Mu Chen dared to kick him out of the spirit ranking, with his personality, he wouldn't just let it go. Yes. Moreover, the people who had been pushed down a rank by him wouldn't feel great either. This Mu Chen sure is courageous. Within the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy, countless individuals continued to talk with each other as they stared at the spirit ranking. However, it was clear that they felt a bit of sympathy towards Mu Chen's action. It was evident that the commotion caused by the spirit ranking also attracted the attention of many freshmen within the freshman areas. They stared in a daze at the dazzling name on the ranking. Although other individuals may be unfamiliar with this name, all of them knew who that name represented. They never imagined that this person was that powerful. He had only just arrived at the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy, yet he caused such a commotion already. In the freshman area's North District, Yang Hong, who was sitting cross-legged within a house, suddenly opened his eyes. He stared at the spirit ranking that was emitting a bright light in the distance and looked coldly at the name that made him feel uncomfortable. A hint of coldness flashed through his eyes. As expected, that bastard truly had the compatibility equivalent to a heavenly fusion stage. No wonder he was able to become one of the most outstanding freshmen within the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy. Although you're quite capable, shouldn't you know how to endure and hold back a little? Do you really believe that the seniors, who are ranked in the top 10, truly weaklings? Yang Hong sneered. The seniors within the top 10 of the spirit ranking all possessed the strength of a heavenly fusion stage. From his view, Mu Chen's actions were basically searching for trouble. I'll let you be proud of yourself for a while. A month later, in the freshman competition, I'll let you understand the enormous distance between you and me. Yang Hong slowly tightened his hands as his eyes turned ruthless. Since I, Yang Hong, am in the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy, Mu Chen, you shouldn't even think of being able to succeed here. At this moment, in the other two directions of the freshman area, Bing Qing and Mu Kuei were also aware of the changes within the spirit ranking. They stared at the familiar name as their eyes twinkled. It seemed that there were quite a few powerful individuals within this year's freshmen. The freshman competition a month later would definitely be lively. However, just who would obtain the title of the strongest freshman, rank 3? Mu Chen smiled faintly as he stared at the spirit ranking. This rank was beyond his expectation. He had originally thought that he would only be able to enter the top 5. This time, the amount of spiritual energy that I activated was within the limits of my control. If I were to use all my hidden measures unreservedly, it's possible for me to become rank 1. Mu Chen smiled. However, he did not immediately do this. Becoming rank 3 had already reached his purpose. If he were to immediately soar to rank 1, it would be too eye-catching. How many spiritual value points do you have now? Luo Li asked. Mu Chen opened his hand and the crystal-like spiritual value card landed back in his hand. Within the crystal-clear spiritual value card, lights converged and finally formed into numbers. 24,100 spiritual value points. Mu Chen stared at the amount within his spiritual value card and let out a sigh of relief. By becoming rank 3 on the spirit ranking, he had obtained 20,000 spiritual value points as a reward. This was enough for him to purchase a spirit pill. Tomorrow, I'll head to the spiritual value hall to purchase the spirit pill. Then, I'll enter the lightning territory for a bit. With the remaining time I have left, I will break through to the spirit stage late phase. Mu Chen smiled as he looked at Luo Li. Luo Li nodded gently. At this moment, a person who was sitting cross-legged on a stone platform suddenly opened his eyes. This person was wearing loose clothes with loose long hair. His aura was extremely cold, and powerful spiritual energy fluctuations rippled near his body. He opened his eyes and gripped his hand tightly. A crystal-like spiritual value card emerged and lights flashed. Then, his expression suddenly became grim. Mu Chen? A freshman that just entered the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy actually dared to eliminate me from the spirit ranking. The youth's eyes were quite cold as his face was filled with fury. He did not care about the daily reward of 1,000 spiritual value points from the spirit ranking anymore. If it was a senior, he would accept the situation. However, he was kicked out by a freshman who had just arrived at the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy and was not used to the academy. To him, this was a big disgrace. He did not know how many individuals would mock him because of this. This was a challenge to his strength, damn it. The youth gritted his teeth. It seemed that he must stop his cultivation for a while. After all, he could not lose his pride. Although he would not be able to return to the spirit ranking after finding the freshman, it would at least allow him to regain a bit of pride. I'd like to see just how capable a freshman like you is. You actually dare to be this arrogant upon entering the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy. The youth grunted and muttered to himself, since others won't teach you, I, Mo Lun, will teach you what we call respecting your seniors. As his voice faded away, the youth closed his eyes once again. In his heart, he had already made up his mind. He would temporarily stop his training tomorrow and teach that arrogant freshman a lesson. This video will end here. Thank you for watching.